Hi, new plan. So we're going to go take a look at the pond from Google Earth here and sort of understand the watershed. Our friend Tom, who's a stormwater engineer and understands the land uses in and around it, will sort of explain to us how the flow is going to go and some of the challenges of the area. And you asked earlier if there's a process. So I guess the process is, other than by the seat of the pants, is to understand the watershed and what's coming at us. And just by my conversation with Tom at lunch, I understand that we have conventional corn upstream, so we could have pesticides, fungicides, synthetic fertilizers coming at us. So before we grow fish in it, let's think about how we're going to manage that. So that'll be part of the process is, other than by the seat of the pants, as any good ecological design is to understand the watershed. Oh, and then earlier you asked about the microplastics, right? We don't really have a way of dealing with that. They're microscopic, and I have a feeling that algal turf communities could be, an effective means, but are we going to break down microplastics? Are fungi going to be something? If they can break down oil, can they maybe break down microplastics? Those are where I see the possibilities. And maybe Living Wave Farm is a great place to pilot and prototype some of those experiments because it's microcosm kind of thing where we can sort of look at the microplastics coming in, which probably in this watershed aren't great, but we could simulate it. We could get water from an area which does have more. We could do it in a greenhouse or anything like that, but. It's a really important question. It's a really timely question. We're starting to understand the full impact of them, and so. No, you're ahead of us on that one, but it would be a really interesting thing to look at and how the algal turf communities can sort of trap them, and maybe the fungal community can break them down.
By the way, Ken's reminded me there's another piece that I don't know if you know about, Tom, but there's a development on a ridge up above the cornfield, which is causing way more erosion and way more water now to come down to the pond. It's a brand new development, so they've stripped off all the land.
And that would have been a great one of those things where you go upstream and fix the problem before it happens with best management practices and erosion control at the site of the development, but unfortunately that's not the world we live in right now. And
Mills River is the fastest growing community in North Carolina.
Yeah. That's not always a good thing.
It's not going the right direction. No.
I understand why they want, quality of life, but they should also adopt, some sort of stewardship, and that's not part of the American vernacular right now. It just doesn't seem to be. It's a small, rugged minority. But I'd like to defer right now to Tom, our stormwater engineer, and many other things. I don't want to corner him into that, but thank you, Tom. Here's the pond. Here's the 70 acres that Tom said. So this is all upstream. This area here, the forest here, and then the cornfields here. Then here's your pond, and here's your greenhouses.
Here's the school right there.
There's the school.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's the greenhouse.
And there's several. There's a spring and there's water that's coming in from here and then ending up in the pond. There's a little creek which Tom is going to be working with us to fix some erosion problems on this year, and which we want to actually tie in that work.
Right. Well, and don't you guys have a mushroom producer around here?
Oh, we have mushroom producers for sure, yeah. We grow mushrooms too.
Right, fantastic. So let's just find a way for when he gets the engineering done, we'll start dumping wood chip inoculated with mushroom spawn and actually producing mushrooms in the wood chips that are harvestable and
we are also
tightening up that bank.
A $750,000 restoration of Foster Creek, which is thus the greatest source of silt pollution to Hendersonville and Asheville's water supply. And we're going to be doing that in 2020, and we want to do, their NRCS people that are involved with us are thrilled at looking at that technology for future ponds.
I mean, because it was an accidental discovery, kind of the eureka thing, I just don't see doing riparian stabilization without that tool in the box.
Well, we're ready to go on it.
Right on.
Yeah. Totally.
I'd like to participate.
Yeah, well, we want you to. Yeah. We're counting on it.
And so one of the things that I've learned in working with Pat is that he wants to expand the universe into what the solutions are. And in engineering, typically, they want to use what's been proven. And Pat said, I don't want that, I want to expand it, which I think is a great idea. And I think, tailoring into what you've been talking about this morning, let's do stuff that makes sense. Let's use the model of nature to come up with a solution.
Well, and I actually think it's possible, and I bet you agree, I know your dad agrees, that we can show people that in the end, what was a problem can be a source of more sustenance.
Absolutely, you take it from liability to asset using ecological sequencing. And because I did disparage engineers earlier, but some good old-fashioned engineering with the mind that's open to using nature as a model is one of the most valuable things we can have once they've gotten over that hurdle of, I know better than nature, which Tom obviously has.
This is Kimsey Road right here, right?
Which is a complete torrent of water coming off of these fields and a driveway, this driveway here. I mean, just brown water. It's in front of our gate. It's like, 6 inches deep during the big rains, all pouring into the little creek that is right at our entrance to the greenhouses.
Right about here, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. And it just is then pouring into that creek, and then that pours into the next creek that goes into the pond.
So there's a big portion of the watershed over here, which is part of the cornfield and part of this wooded area. There's a creek that comes down here and a large, I would say probably about a 4-foot diameter culvert pipe under Kimsey Road. And then you've got some of the watershed coming up this way, and there's a smaller portion of runoff coming down this way. And that kind of goes down through here, right? Mm-hmm. Then you've got a natural spring popping up right here, right?
One of many. It's the one we captured.
Then there's another one over here, a small pipe coming down that way. So you basically have water coming this way, coming down this little stream right there, and then you do have some runoff coming this way, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's coming in everywhere.
And then there's another, I'm trying to remember exactly where it is, coming back in through here somewhere?
Yeah, it's on the other side of these houses. It's kind of like right in there,
Yeah.
going over to the,
Yeah, right, coming down here to the pond.
yeah.
So there's basically one stream here and another one coming down this way.
And then a little
right in-
spring-fed stream that feeds into that stream too.
Right, yeah,
So on a day like today, we're getting millions and millions of gallons.
exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot of water moving. And by the way, this whole property was one big pond. It was a mill that was used, I think, for woodworking until 1916 when there was a huge hurricane that flooded all this area and it broke and there was loss of life, and then it was taken back to much smaller. So the whole property that we farm on is basically a pond
It
bottom.
was dammed?
It's dammed, yeah.
Was it dammed in the same place?
Yeah,
as the
my
pond?
understanding is that there was. I'm definitely not, that's just, it's stories I've heard from people who live around here.
So right now, this pond is right here. There's a pretty good sized dam here as far as farms go. And then there's this, you can kind of see it right there is the concrete spillway. So there's an overflow spillway right here, and then it continues down to eventually the Mills River.
And one of the solutions that we were given for the algae problem from the person who put the pond in, he said they made us put the overflow to they made us take it from the bottom, so as not to affect the life downstream. But they're not enforcing that anymore. If you just do your overflow from the top, you'll get much more cold water and can solve your algae problem. And I was like, yeah, we could. We're not gonna, because the reason they made us do that is because it's the right thing to do. It's to keep the cold water in the stream so you don't damage the life and make the stream too warm. But there's definitely pressure from members that want to just see the creek fixed and want to raise it up so that the water's colder, which would reduce the algae problems. But that's not the way we want to go, because there is a downstream.
I think that's probably, in a nutshell, what's going on in the watershed.
One of the things that I'd love for everybody to think about in terms of design of the pond is, I guess you've gathered from, those mooring examples to the restorer islands, the floating, the floating wetlands is like, let's think about how we can inexpensively and if possible using natural or inert materials get surface area in this pond in a way that we can manage fish in it. And my new understanding of my conversation with Tom at lunch is that this pond is probably getting some nasties in it from the cornfields up there. And so I think that we should probably think about a wetland or some kind of a treatment prior to the pond so we can use the pond for food production. We can grow fish, we can grow mushrooms along the edge, and we can use the fish nutrient water to water the gardens and the greenhouses.
There is, by the way, a lot of wetland in this area right here. It's kind of grown in now. We have a gray willow infection, but there is a lot of wetland already there.
Right, and so we could just sort of, it could be soft engineered, where you put in distribution headers and collection headers, so you're spreading the flow across that natural wetland, and then maybe planting it, so it would be a surface flow wetland, and then maybe planting it with native plants that would help take some of the contaminants coming from the cornfield out, and we could create a protocol of testing before and after the wetland, and testing the pond to see if see if over a year or two that we can convert it into something that's safe for producing food.
This kind of leads into, what's Victor's last name?
I can't remember.
Yeah, he had a cutting edge German engineer from maybe
1930s?
Yeah, early 1900s, and he had all sorts of practical applications of drainage engineering, hydraulics and stuff that he did, and he had different systems of going back and forth rather than just straight down. And maybe we could incorporate some of that into the wetlands.
I love the idea of a flow form kind of thing, like a giant flow form, clay lined kind of maybe, and planted so semi-permeable, and that's a beautiful idea. And there is that unquantifiable thing that flow forms do, how that water flows through that it's one of those things I can't put it on a data sheet, but I can see it, I can smell it, and I can taste it, and it works.
And there's way to bioenergetically infuse the clay so that it is amplifying that full spectrum harmonic light of nature that you are getting from the penetration of the sunlight into the geometry and the complexity of all the plants. So you can infuse the clay.
Is that an expertise that far out then? So we got a team here that's like, yeah.
It's going to be the most woo-woo restoration. Take the woo-woo on. I think it actually is scientific, brilliantly scientific. So I'm using the woo-woo kind of in a way to take that fear out of us,
Okay.
And we embrace it. We don't care if we can prove it. We haven't got time for that. We're going to do it and prove it by how it happens.
You could use mica in whatever your soil mix is because there's lots of layers. So you could use black tourmaline, and nobody has to know about it, and a few other things, obsidian, etc.
Right. I think there's loads of knowledge here. We want to use all of it in developing the plan.
I think Diane has something she wants to add.
It may not be pertinent, but I was wondering if the culvert that actually goes under South Mills River Road is adequate so far.
They actually just enlarged it a lot. They came through and upgraded it big time.
Okay.
Just about 2 years ago.
Because from South Mills River Road and Bryson there, it's only about a quarter mile to the river.
Yeah, we're really close to the river. Yeah.
So,
Are you having problems with runoff because of so much flow there or at all, or?
Oh, there's so many problems. It's pretty endless, because of the water that's coming down from here and off of there and now from this development, there's huge amounts of water that are flowing in, and the stream is going way too fast. It's eating up lots of the farm, There's also water flowing across all the pastures. They don't look very big, but there's pastures all around here, and they're basically for horses that are pets, and there's too many of them. So they're overgrazed, and then there's all that animal manure and urine, so that's going into the, into the pond.
Well, they're also compacted.
Well, well, it's totally overgrazed, there's too many.
But that's a fixed factor. That's not going to change, right?
I don't know. I kind of hope it will at some point.
Because
Yeah.
we could put in an interceptor strip. So basically, we can intercept the water and retain it in a plant biochar media, and then maybe that would be a great place to sort of do the gabion wetland sort of things, where you have the biochar in the gabion, and when it's saturated with the nutrients, then you're able to put it on the soil, then you put it in a new gabion, and so just using a gabion for wetland media, but it's manageable because it's in the gabion.
I think we should build that into the plan.
So when we get back and we're finishing up, we'll draw in Interceptor wetland trench with gabion.
Yeah.
Gabion, you're talking about a gabion filled with char.
With biochar and maybe adsorbing stone mixed into it. And energy clays would be another. I mean, that would be a super dynamic sort of mix of char, the energy clay, and I don't know if there's a native stone here that would adsorb phosphorus and nitrogen, maybe not, or maybe that would be just sort of have beneficial minerals, so that would be part of the mix with the clay and the biochar.
Once the gabion was saturated, we would.
Right. Once you saw the N and the P spiking after it, and you'd put it through a rock grinder and just spread it right on the soil, and you could do a strip of corn next to this guy and grow much better corn than him with just that in it instead of and I want so it'd be great if somebody could go to him and make the economic argument for some really good organic sweet corn as opposed to Roundup.
Right, yeah. Well, and in the future, we can also show them that they can actually sow at the same time they're sowing their corn, things like purslane, that can actually totally take over the understory so they don't need to use the Roundup.
Yeah.
And then they have another crop they can sell. So down the road, we'll get there, but not as fast as we may need. I'm not sure about that one. Okay.
Is the cornfield for sale, perhaps?
No, and we actually have let the folks know that we would always be interested, and we've heard that it's not leaving the paper. Not likely we'll ever get to buy it.
How about lease?
They have a long-standing lease with the people they got it with, and they honor their word. And
That's good.
Yeah.
But I mean,
They're good people.
keeping it in the family and honoring their lease is great. But Roundup's not.
Yeah, well, and they of course are leasing it, so they're not making those decisions. And it's decisions that all the farmers here have made. But that's what they feel they have to do. I don't want to have judgment in this. I just want to bring inspiration and show other ways.
One of the best ways of bringing inspiration is to show the economic advantage of a higher quality crop.
Yeah. Kathy, you got a question?
What about micro-remediation, like Paul Stamets talks about, for a lot of animal manure runoffs, wood chips, and I forgot if it was Kingsford Barrier or some other mushroom spawn that we put on there.
That's a big part of the plan. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you caught, but that's what we're talking about is integrating along all the riparian areas the myco-inoculated wood chips, and they intercept and they're also great at capturing phosphorus and nitrogen as well. So, the whole Stamets approach is definitely is a big part of the whole approach.
We've got a bunch of very active mushroom people right around us. I just got an email just yesterday about somebody else that wants to join us in teaching mushroom stuff. There's a lot of mushroom energy right here.
That's perfect. I mean, we can read Stamets' book and take and take away some of his examples and use our local knowledge, and that's the key thing is to use local resources.
John Milton as a resource with the mushroom stuff. I know that he also has some.
John's doing mostly char. I mean, he would use mushroom stuff too. John's definitely a resource. He's into he started his life because he wanted to repair strip land. That's how he got into his whole career. Coal, strip mining lands. Yeah. So his energy will be part of what we do. It is already.
I wonder how biochar would be integrated into a mycelial media, like mixed in with the wood chips and everything like that, because surface area. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you mend it in. Because the biochar has all the little crevices.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Surface area, and so yep. And it might have some available carbon that the mycelia like to. Yeah. Exactly. Slow carbon. Yeah. Which would mean a really sustainable myco community. So it might be a really interesting experiment to do here, because I've heard there's some biochar people around here somewhere.
Yeah, there's somewhere. That's somewhere or another, yeah. Right. We also get the word out to the various landscapers, and we get endless truckloads of wood chips. Now the problem is they're all mixed up, so we probably have to find a mix of mushrooms to grow on. We're not getting pure.
No. We don't want. I don't think pure strains are a good idea. I think that that letting the diversity sort of take hold is the key, and the pure strains are very hard to maintain and everything like that. I think that non-pressurized production, non-sterile production, and is going to be the way to go.
We want to look at utilizing those carbon resources. I look forward to the day that when I ask for wood chips and for leaves and stuff, they go, well, what are you gonna pay me? Because everybody wants them. But for the day that carbon is not considered a waste product. But we're not there yet, and I'm gonna fully avail our farm of that resource at the moment.
Patrick, you got your biodynamics in this one?
John Henry Nelson, you here?
Yeah.
You can answer that question.
What's the question?
Do we use
biodynamics on the
biodynamic?
farm?
Do we do biodynamics in the farm? Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna crank it up this year. We did a few sprays last year. Yep.
I didn't want to answer it because I think it's a wonderful idea, but I've yet to wrap my very left brain oriented mind around it. And so
But
I'm
it's
very
a left
thrilled.
brain- You can go, there's a woman from Germany, what's her name, that wrote
Maria
that.
Thun?
She got all the science you could ever want.
Uh, I don't need the science. I've seen it work, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I believe in it completely. We have a maintenance man who's very knowledgeable about lots of stuff, including pretty much a spring whisperer. He's really great at capturing springs. He grew up in the mountains, he's got lots of knowledge. And his take on the pond is we should fill it in and turn it into pasture because all the sediment that's going in there anyways is just filling it up. Because of all the, what's coming off of that development, what's coming off the road. So he's ready to give up on it, He just says, it's gonna fill up anyways, just fill it up. Whereas I think all that sediment and stuff, we can take it back out at some point and spread it on fields that need it, and use it for making hugel beds and stuff like that. And I don't wanna let go of the pond, but just to throw that in there.
No, I was going to say then. Okay, that's the other possibility is let it fill naturally and let it go. But
it doesn't appeal to me. I like ponds.
No, and I think the pond is a great source of concentrating the nutrients, and even in the sediment. And the hugel beds are a great a great idea on how to manage that sediment.
Well, it's also more diversity. There's also, by the way, a resident large geese population, which at least one point was being fed. So of course, then there's an awful lot of geese poop and geese feathers and all that stuff too.
And Pat, with due respect to the guy who knows the lands and sees that sedimentation process, permitting a pond in the 21st century in Western North Carolina is really difficult. Like you're not gonna build a pond like that again. So don't let this one fill in because it's a finite resource.
That's a huge point you did that we often don't think of when we're making these decisions is. If we let this go, you won't get it back. And so that's something I didn't think of. And so, because I was like, well, maybe to the gentleman who understands the hydrology of the area, maybe to his point, maybe let it, but maybe it won't fill in so much as we go upstream, stabilizing all of the banks and reducing the sediment and plugging up all the bad management practices. Yeah, I think it would be great to go out there and then we'll sort of maybe we can trace a general schematic, maybe somebody better, but do a general schematic so we can do the pond. Right, and then we got the cornfields.
We can see it.
Yeah, they're good with that.
And so the cornfield, and then here this forest area is part of it. Then the bad horses are here.
Down, someplace through there, going along these buildings and going into the pond.
And there's the other stream coming through here, right?
Yeah.
And then the bad horses are here.
The horses are right around the pond.
Right here. So pond's here.
No.
There's that big one above.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. Here's the pond.
Right.
How big is your dam there? I mean, you still have an existing dam, right?
Yeah, there's a new dam put in since that one broke.
And is it earthen dam or is it concrete?
It's earthen.
Uh-huh.
It's more than adequate to handle what it's in. And it has an incredible spillway outlet, so,
So, I mean, one of the things that I think you should consider for future is maintaining that earthen dam, because earthen dams can wear down also. And, I don't know if there's anything within these plans that you can use to maintain it properly, but.
So the horses are here?
the barn for the horses is there, and they graze all around the pond. There's little pasture, not very much, but it's all around the pond.
Circle the pond.
They're right here.
It's right there, yeah. Yeah, I know, we all noticed the rain stopped and we're gonna take off pretty quick, right?
Ready to rock and roll. Let's just jump on the window.